All right, guys, we have some truly historic breaking news for you this morning that led to us both getting dressed up and me putting my makeup on and coming to what is actually my mom's school, preschool, to tell you what exactly is going on. So, as we've been reporting, Amazon workers had two key elections unfolding where they got to elect whether or not they were going to join a union. One was a do-over down in Bessemer, Alabama. And the other one was a new effort led by a brand new labor union called Amazon Labor Union, led by Christian Smalls up on Staten Island, New York. That warehouse is called JFK 8. Both of them, very positive results. So let me start with Bessemer, where things are a lot more uncertain. Still, based on the vote tallies that we know, the union is a little bit behind. Here's the votes as they stand today. You have 875 in favor of the union and 993 against. However, there are 416 ballots that have been challenged. So that is sufficient to make up the current deficit for the union. Now, we don't know which direction those ballots are going to go in. However, there are some reasons to be a little bit hopeful here, Saagar, still, because in the past, it's been Amazon that has challenged more of the ballots. When you're the entity challenging the ballots, that means you probably think that they have gone against you. So this is going to go to the National Labor Relations Board. They're going to have to mediate this dispute. They're going to have to go through these challenge ballots and see what's what. So there's still a glimmer of hope that even in this one, the union may ultimately succeed. And even if they don't, it's a dramatic shift in the landscape because last time the union lost by like 2/3 to 1/3.
Yes.
It was overwhelming. It wasn't even close. So clearly they have made up a whole lot of ground. In the meantime, they've had more time to organize. They don't have, as stringent pandemic restrictions to deal with. But also I think it's an indication of just how much the labor landscape has changed.
I think that's the key point. No matter what happens here with these 400 ballots, and you were telling me this before we did the segment, which is that you have a friendly NLRB in this case. So it's very likely that if things do get challenged and if it's very razor thing, that things could go for the union's way. All of that aside, even if they win with this current election, or if they lose with this current election, it's a razor thin in terms of the results. And that wasn't even close the last time.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to point out too, this is in the South in an extraordinarily union busting environment. Amazon was caught actually actively cheating in the last election. That's why they had to redo it. I don't know if you guys remember the details there. They installed a drop box that the NLRB had told them they couldn't do. There were some other over-the-top intimidation tactics, changing the stoplights, all those sorts of things. So you're talking about the most difficult landscape in the country, in the South, and with a company that is sort of like on the bleeding edge of effective union busting tactics. So the fact that the result has shifted this much is in and of itself extraordinary.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that also when we couple it, obviously, with why we're so excited and why we're here today, and we'll put this one up there on the screen with the victory, a apparent victory, we don't want to toot everybody's horn, by Christian Smalls at that Amazon Labor Union. Current vote totals are 1518 yes, 1154 no, 364 votes in the Amazon Labor Union's favor to wrap up today's count. So the counting is going to resume today. We don't yet know the number of outstanding ballots, but look, several hundred vote lead. This is an astounding accomplishment, which we put side by side with Bessemer. I think there's a lot that's going on here. We'll do an entire other segment about AOC and the abandonment of Christian Smalls and the Amazon Labor Union by much of the professional progressive left. But this shows you that in the current environment and ruthlessly focusing on worker issues specifically is what matters at its core. And I was thinking about that a lot in the context of Bessemer. You and I did a great segment after that the original failed Bessemer election, where we looked at some of the union tactics that were being organized. And let's be honest, a lot of it was identity politics. They're like, this is a great way to stick with BLM. And people were like, yeah, but like, what about my wages and healthcare and all this stuff? In this environment, in the current environment, with the Great Resignation, so much emphasis on inflation, on wages, on workplace conditions, on power. And speaking with Christian Smalls himself, this was just about worker conditions. And when you focus on that, you can actually build across identity, partisan, boundaries and more. And Christian has always been so attentive and good at sticking to these particular things from the pandemic. And I think that's what really set him up for success. I'm not trying to turn it into a woke not versus non-woke thing. I'm just observing like what worked and what didn't.
I'm not ready to make that judgment just because I wasn't on the ground in Bessemer. I wasn't on the ground in New York. And I know racial justice was a central part of what Chris has been talking about with workers on Staten Island as well. But I think there's a couple things to say. Number one, the landscape nationwide is just very different. I mean, we just got jobs numbers in, large 400,000 plus jobs created, very low unemployment rate. But at the same time, you have inflation that is killing people in terms of their actual wages. So you now have a dynamic where workers aren't afraid to lose their job. They know they can get another job. The question is it going to be a good job? So that gives them more, that fortifies them to be able to take what is a gigantic risk and a leap of faith by joining up with a union. And so the fact that you have such a shift in the results down in Bessemer, a place that also has been beset by poverty, has high relative to the nation unemployment rate, and you have workers saying, okay, you know what? I think that I could take this risk and I think I could sign up, and you have the shift there. And then you have what looks like a victory on Staten Island. That speaks to a number of things. It speaks to a totally different landscape in terms of unions. It speaks to the fact that we have had some coverage now of the John Deere strike and the Kellogg strike and Amazon's extraordinarily anti-labor practices, which have gotten some attention in the news media. And then I also think so much credit goes to Christian Smalls and his colleagues themselves, because just think about this. This man was fired by Amazon. They smeared him. Their executives were caught in memos saying, you know what, we should make him the face of the movement because he's not, quote, smart or articulate. That lights a fire under him. And he says, oh, hell no. We are going to do something about the conditions at these warehouses. I don't work there anymore, but I'm going to fight for the people that I used to work with. And rather than joining up with an established union, because he didn't want this sort of talking point of, oh, this is a third party coming in between you and your bosses in your workplace, they start a worker-led Amazon labor union from the ground up. And I do think that that has to be a key part of the success here. Christian was a leader in his workplace. He had great connections, great relationships. And so people trusted him. And I'm sure they also saw the way that he was smeared by Amazon and said, this is completely messed up. Here's the other piece that we, are going to talk about more when we get to my little interactions with AOC and all of that. But, I think that not a lot of people expected him to succeed because they were starting from scratch. They didn't have much money. They didn't have much support. And they didn't get the sort of celebrity backing that we saw down in Bessemer the first time around. But while the media and a lot of, folks on the progressive left were sort of ignoring what was going on here, they were doing the work and forming these relationships and building a network of trust to ultimately, it looks like, win the day. I just want to pause for a moment, though, to reflect on just how historic this is. 1 out of every 153 workers in this country is an Amazon worker. Mm-hmm. They are massively significant in terms of the conditions of the labor market. So this isn't just a story about these workers on Staten Island or down in Bessemer, Alabama. This is a story about workers all across the country. And we have seen from Starbucks the way once one shop goes union, it can spark a wildfire that takes off across the country, because you see, oh my God, they can actually do it. It's actually possible. It can actually happen. This has never, ever happened before. If they do indeed win, which it looks very good right now, this has never, ever happened before in US history, an Amazon warehouse being organized by a union. That is a sea change in terms of labor politics. In my opinion, it makes Christian Smalls a historic figure to be learned about in terms of labor visionaries who sparked a movement. And that's really extraordinary in what's happening right now.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, when we think about Christian as well, it's astounding. I almost want to posit that maybe the lack of celebrity and media involvement and all that allowed him to just do his thing and organize in the issues that actually mattered to what was going on. And instead of turning it into a national referendum, it allowed him to work behind the scenes. It also seems, obviously, Amazon dramatically underestimated him and has from the beginning. And we had him on all the way from, I remember the very first time that we interviewed him, I couldn't believe the way that they talked about him in those emails. It was so disgusting. And then his entire firing was just such an unjust thing that was ignored by so much of our corporate media. And then so many of these other instances, which we've been trying to highlight for a long time. So look, I think this is a landmark moment. This is something that Bezos and his company have spent literally billions of dollars trying to stop, because they know. They try to paint themselves as the altruistic company. We'll pay $17 an hour, pay healthcare, all that. But if you don't assemble your ottoman in 7 minutes, you're fired. And a human's not going to fire you. A text message will. You have been driving. You've been driving a little bit out of your way to go to your bathroom. You're fired. You've been taking too long because your knees hurt or you have sciatica. In order to bend down, in order to bend up, pick up boxes, you're fired. Temporary worker, no benefit, creating these like weird migrant conditions, you're fired. These are not things that, we should accept here in the United States. And this has been a big conversation for a long time. Amazon almost tripled in size over the last couple of years. They are doing better than ever. Stock splits, they're multi-billionaires, all their executives. So it's time to have a conversation about balance. And I think this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, they're trying to posture now, I think under pressure because of some of these organizing efforts, like, oh, you know what? We want to be the best place to work in the world. And we're going to, they've made some token changes to improve benefits and improve pay. But if you look at the stats, first of all, warehouse work is very difficult. It's brutal on your body. And historically, it's been closer in wages and benefits and stability to factory work. So this was the type of job that you could get as a high school educated person and have a pathway to the middle class. Amazon likes to compare themselves and their wages to like McDonald's or Walmart. Now, in an ideal world, those would be good middle class jobs too, but we all know today that they're not. So when you're comparing Amazon's warehouse wages to McDonald's, you're getting a very skewed picture of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the statistics show that when an Amazon warehouse opens in a county, in a town, it lowers the warehouse wages, the average warehouse wages of everyone. So they also have much higher injury records than comparable competitors in the warehouse and logistics space. So they are lowering the labor standards for everyone. They're taking one of the few remaining pathways to the middle class for, working class, high school educated people. They are putting that out of reach and taking that off the table. And then the other thing that this is about is just control. Who gets to have say over what the workplace conditions are and what the reality day-to-day on the job actually is? Amazon has wanted to do everything in their power to make sure that they have say over every minute little detail, every inch, every minute of your day. And these workers are saying, no, we want to have say in what our day-to-day looks like and how our workplaces are run. That's all really that they're asking for at this point, is we want to have a say in how this is all going down. So it is a truly historic moment. They're going to continue the counting this morning. Expectations are that the counting will finish today. I saw Amazon Labor Union was tweeting out that I think they're gathering for a rally this afternoon. Check out their Twitter timeline to see that. And the other thing that I want to say to people is they have another Amazon facility in New York that is due for an election this month now in April.
Wow. That's gonna be big.
Yeah. And it's gonna be huge, and they need your support because they aren't backed by any big players. They aren't backed by an established labor union. They have been grassrootsing this and bootstrapping it all the way. So we'll put the link in the description of if you can contribute to what they're doing. There is not a better fight that you could engage with and help to bolster and support. They so deserved it. They've been ignored and dismissed, and now is the time to show up big for them.
Yeah, that's well said. We'll have a link down there in the description. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Well, more for you guys later.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.